Right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our public lecture on ASEAN Women and Children Protections through Civil Society and Academic Participation 2021. This public lecture is presented by the ASEAN Study Center from the Faculty of Social and Political Science, Universitas Gadjah Mada, with the support of the Embassy of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. ASEAN Study Center Universitas Gadjah Mada was established by Universitas Gadjah Mada in collaborations with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Indonesia in 2013. The research center aims to generate critical scientific research and enhance the positions and contributions of Indonesia in the ASEAN. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Fadila, and I'm a program officer in ASEAN Study Center. I'm very excited to be here, and I would be the master of ceremony for today's event. Before I continue the event, I would like to welcome our honorable moderator and also speakers for today's event. Welcome, Your Excellency, Ms. Yuyum Fahnani Prayani, as the former ACWC Indonesia representative on children. Welcome, Mr. Dhafri Agus Salim, Executive Director of ASEAN Study Center, Universitas Gadjah Mada. Your Excellency, Ambassador Lambert Grins, Ambassador of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. Thank you so much for being here and accepting our invitations. Also, I would like to greet our panelists and also discussions. Your Excellency, Dato Paduka Dr. Haji Junaidi bin Haji Abdul Rahman, ACWC Chair and Brunei Darussalam Representative for Children's Rights. Your Excellency, Ms. Yanti Kusumawardani, Indonesia Representative to the ACWC for Children's Rights. Ms. Yanti Kusumaningrum, Director of Puskapa, Center on Child Protections and Wellbeing at Universitas Indonesia. Ms. Rachel Tan, Program Officer and Focal Point for the Women, Gender, and Diversity Working Group of the Asia Pacific Refugee Rights Network. I would also like to extend my greetings to our discussions today. Your Excellency, Ms. Yuyun Wahyuningrum, Indonesia AICR representative, and also Mr. Ali Auli Ramli, Child Protection Specialist at UNICEF Indonesia. Ms. Audrey, Senior Program Manager at International Women's Rights Actions Watch Asia Pacific. Thank you so much for attending our events and being part of it. Before I proceed, I would like to inform you about today's agenda. First of all, there will be an opening remarks. The second session is the panel discussions. And then the next agenda is the question and answers by the public. But before that, it will be continued by discussions. And the last one is closing. Before we move to the first agenda, I would like to invite all the participants to join our question and answer sessions using Slido. There will be a Slido link that will be disseminated by our team. And then our moderator will be read your question and answers using the platform. We will also provide you the certificate that will be shown after the question and answer sessions. So please don't forget to fill out our form to claim your e-certificate. Right. For the first agenda, we are answering to the series of opening remark sessions. I would like to welcome Mr. Dhafri Agus Salim, the Executive Director of ASEAN Study Center, Universitas Gadjah Mada, to give the opening remarks. Mr. Dhafri, the time is yours.
Thank you, Ms. Fadila. Excellencies, esteemed panelists, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. A very warm welcome to Excellencies Ambassador Lambert Grins, Ambassador of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, Excellency Dato Paduka Dr. Haji Junaidi bin Haji Abdul Rahman, ACWC Chair and Brunei Darussalam Representative for Children's Rights, Excellency Ms. Yanti Kusumawardani, Indonesia Representative to the ACWC for Children's Rights, Ms. Santi Kusumaningrum, Director of Puskapa, Center on Child Protection and Wellbeing at the University of Indonesia, Ms. Rachel Tan, Program Officer and Focal Point for the Women, Gender, and Diversity of Working Groups of the Asia Pacific Refugee Rights Network, Madam Ms. Yuyum Fahnani Prayani, former ASEAN Commission on the Promotion of and Protections of the Rights of Women and Children, Indonesia Representative for Children, Ms. Yuyun Wahyuningrum, Indonesia Representative for ICHAIR, our honorable discussion from ICHAIR, UNICEF, and IWR, AWEP, as well as group moderator and participants. A very good afternoon to you all. It is great honors to speak before you today as we gather for a very important cause. The importance of the promotion and protection of women and children is one that is often undermined by the policymaker. So allow me to start by praising a very famous quote that the seeds of every success in every nation on earth are best planted in women and children. Women play a key role in the socio-economic development of the society. They are the key to sustainable development and equality of life and quality of life in the family. In the community, they ensure the stability, progress, and long-term development of nations. Therefore, it is without a doubt that the empowerment of the woman can help the society to grow and develop at a faster pace. Likewise, children are the future of the world. However, the actions or inactions of government at times impact children more strongly than any other group in society. Policymaking that fails to take children into account has a negative impact on the future of all members of society. This is why the discussion we will be having today will hopefully lead to actions and meaningful policy changes in the future. Today, we hope to facilitate discussions among strategic actors in the community to map their roles in supporting the ongoing work of ASEAN and regional effort. We also hope to identify possible ways to create a stronger and more sustainable platform for engagement. With CSOs and academics coming together today and tomorrow during the roundtable discussion to scrutinize imminent issues and strategies to push for gender-sensitive and children-responsive agenda. We hope to inch closer toward a more inclusive community, a community that leaves no one behind. With this, allow me to highlight also that women's and children's rights are human rights. I thank you all for participating in this discussion. I'm certain that the discussion taking place today and tomorrow during the roundtable discussion will yield positive and meaningful results. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the opening remarks, Mr. Dhafri Agus Salim. And now I welcome Your Excellency, Ambassador Lambert Grins, the Ambassador of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. Ambassador, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mbak Fadila. Thank you very much to all for having me here. Good afternoon. Thank you particularly, of course, to Pak Dhafri Agus Salim, the Executive Director of the ASEAN Study Center at the Universitas Gadjah Mada. And welcome to all other distinguished participants. It's actually a long list. So if you allow me, I would like to say all protocol observed in greeting all the distinguished guests who are here, especially the panelists and all the participants. Once again, thank you very much for having me here. It's a great honor and great pleasure since as the Dutch Embassy, we know very well what the Asian Commission on the Promotion and Protection of the Rights of Women and Children has been doing over the last 10 years. It's also pretty special moment to be here amongst you, because you are celebrating those 10 years. And if you celebrate, it's time for reflection, time to look back on what you have achieved, and maybe also time to look ahead on what is on your shopping list and what you still want to do. Also maybe time to reflect on effectiveness and efficiency. Now, we want to be a part of that discussion, and we want to, again, reconfirm our commitment to your important work. We have been and we are supporting ACWC for a number of reasons. First of all, we want to show to you and to the world that the Indo-Pacific region is very important for us as a country from Europe, and important for the region. We want to be engaged with the Indo-Pacific region, in particular with ASEAN. So for the Netherlands, we have decided just recently that we do want to step up our efforts in the ASEAN region. We want to show to ASEAN that, yes, you're a very relevant organization, and we from Europe want to be engaged and want to step up our commitment. One proof of that commitment is the fact that we have applied to become a member of the Treaty of Amity and Cooperation, which we hope can be very soon finalized and signed by all parties involved. This year, there will be hopefully 4 countries become a member of that treaty, including the Netherlands. Now, the third and maybe most important reason we are supporting ACWC is that we believe, as Dafri, I think, rightly said, we believe in human rights and in the rights of women and children. And the rights of women and children are human rights. A very essential right. It's also a very important part of our foreign policy. If you look, there must somewhere be on the website an English version available, but if you look at our human rights policy, you will see that women's rights and the rights of children are very essential parts of our total human rights policy. And I think there are good reasons for that. But if you look at the women's rights situation and the rights situation of children in the region, it's quite challenging, especially now with COVID, where we see that due to the COVID-19 situation, the position of women and children have become even more of a challenge. Look at issues such as the increase, as a result of COVID, the increase of violence against women, the increase of child marriages, like here in Indonesia, the increase of poverty amongst women, the increase of unemployment, because many women are working in the retail sector, in tourism sector, in hotels, etc. We also see the same effect occurring in relation to children, more violence at home, malnourishment, lack of good nutrition, partly because they cannot go to school anymore where they would have good nutrition. The closure of schools in some countries like Indonesia for already 1.5 years. Imagine what that does, not only to the cognitive part of learning, but also to the mental health of children and their parents. Now, we know that ACWC as an organization is playing a very strong and very encouraging role regarding strengthening the position of women. Just one example, I was told that on the last 8th of March at International Women's Day, a very impressive report was published, the ASEAN Regional Study for Women, Peace and Security, which shows that women play a very essential role in the field of women, peace and security. For instance, by using their informal networks. And by doing so, they have an important role, an essential role in limiting or even preventing radicalization or terrorism. It's just one example, and it's one of the examples which we would like to see from you guys, from you ladies, where we think ACWC, through publication of these kind of reports, can contribute in a significant way to major global issues. So I'm glad with these consultations of today. I'm glad that today you could include partners which may also help making the work of the network more effective, because you need strong cooperation and you need networking. I'm a diplomat myself, and for us, networking is all we have. So networking and tying the knots with each other are essential for your work. So that's why this event is so important. Good that the think tanks are involved, CSOs are involved. I hope that governments will be involved as well, and that may help you in strengthening the effectiveness of your work, because that might be probably one of the key questions for today and the next few days. How can you together increase the effectiveness of this network and tap the or increase the untapped potential? That's, I think, the main message, the main question I would like to share with you. How increased engagement of everyone in this region with the issue of women's rights, children's rights through the network of ACWC. Once again, thank you very much for having me here, and I wish you a very good and fruitful seminar. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Lambert Grimes, for the opening remarks. Moving on to the next agenda is the photo sessions. I would like to ask the participants to open your camera if you would like to. And then we will be having documentations for our today's event. Right, we have a several pages, so please do stay put. I will count to 1, 2, 3, and smile. Right, another one. 1, 2, 3, smile. There's no longer. Oh, sorry. One last page. 1, 2, 3. Right. Thank you so much for the participations. So now I would like to welcome our moderator for today's. But before that, I do encourage all the participants to ask the questions in slido.com. So we will be having the question and answers through the platform. I would like to kindly remind you to access the links on the chat that will be given by our team later on to join the discussions. Right. So before I call upon our moderator today, I would like to give you the brief short bio of our moderator today. So Your Excellency, Ms. Yuyum Fanani Prayani is the former Indonesia representative to the ACWC for Children's Rights. Ms. Yuyum is an independent emergency specialist and consultant for child protections and an external member of the emergency roster of Plan International. Ms. Prayani previously worked as an emergency specialist and consultant on child protections in Nepal 2015. With her specific assignment on earthquake disaster, she conduct the capacity building trainings and also job mentorings for the community staff and also mobilizers of Plan International in the Sindhu, Palwok, and Dolka district in Nepal. She was also part of the emergency response team during the Typhoon Haiyan in the Philippines in 2013 and also in the Philippines in 2015. Ms. Prayani has worked for almost 6 years in Plan International Indonesia as a community-based child protections specialist, as well as a member of the emergency response team. She worked as the program officer for the Learning Assistance Program for Islamic School, and also as a senior project officer in Save the Children's for the project engaging activity for involving children in community integrations. Ms. Prayani has been actively involved as a facilitator in the Child Care Indonesia Network or Jaringan Peduli Anak Indonesia, which is supported by UNICEF and also Semerus Research Institute. Ms. Yuyum, so the time is yours.
Okay, thank you, Mbak Fadila. Very good introduction about me that I'm also don't remember. Thank you to set biography for me. And very good afternoon, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to say the welcome to our webinar from the ASEAN Study Center on Public Lecture and Roundtable Discussion on ASEAN Women and Children Protection through Civil Society and Academic Participation on 13 August 2021. I'm Yuyung Pariani. Maybe some little mistake from the Miss Badila because they're Fanani, but I am Yuyung Fahni Pariani. But someone and many of people in ASEAN always confuse with Yuyung and Yuyun because we have a Yuyung in ACWC and Yuyun in HR. Always confusing. But we are happy to make them confused about the name. Okay. Thank you for today. I think it's my pleasure to lead the moderator for this session that will conduct from 1 p.m. to till 3 p.m. I hope this webinar will give more information and acknowledge about the ACWC, such as the achievement, lesson learned, challenges, or possible collaboration. And one from the Ambassador Lambert said that how we can increase the engagement as effectiveness for the ACWC and future regarding related with the civil society and then the academic or think tank. That's very good idea how we can make stronger the ACWC in future. And already mentioned by the Fadila about the question and answer, we'll using the Slido and we will present in the screen. You can type. I don't know. This is new for me, but it's okay. We can learn together and get help from the ASEAN Study Center staff in there. Okay. Now, in short while, we'll start presentation from 4 speaker in here. We have my colleagues, my friend, and my brother from the Brunei Darussalam. Now, he is a ACWC chair for ASEAN until 2021 on November actually, because now we running for a year be a ACWC chair. And Dato, we said Dato, Dato Junaidi. I will read the short biography of Dato Junaidi. Dato Junaidi Abdurrahman is a present Brunei Darussalam representative for the right of children at the ASEAN Commission on the Promotion and Protection of the Right of Women and Children, what we call ACWC, since 2019. Currently, he also holds in the position chairperson of the Board of Visitor for the Welfare Homes Complex in Brunei Darussalam, which provided protective custody and rehabilitation for children. And prior to his current appointment at ACWC, Dato Junaidi held various positions serving the government of Brunei Darussalam over 30 years. He began his career as a primary and secondary school teacher for several years before moving to University of Brunei Darussalam. While the University of Brunei Darussalam, he started work as a lecturer and subsequently appointed as a faculty dean and assistant vice chancellor. His last position before retiring from the government services was as a permanent secretary at the Minister of Education in 2017. Dato Junaidi pursued various academic courses and professional program for secondary education in Singapore to executive development program in Switzerland. He obtained his PhD from University of Warwick in 2001. I think we have a good presenter in here. He has a lot of experience in education actually, and now he moved to be a responsible more on the children issues in ASEAN. Dato Junaidi, I think I give you the presentation only 10 minutes, not more than, but if you have more, someone will knock to remind you about the timing because we have sharp and only 3 until 3 p.m. Okay, Dato, now I will give the time for you, please.
All right, thank you, Yuyum. Assalamualaikum and a very good afternoon to all. First,
Waalaikumsalam.
first and foremost, I would like to thank the organizer for inviting me to speak at this forum. Now, arising from the concept paper and the additional information I received from Ms. Fadila about today's public lecture, I'll touch upon two areas. The first will be about my observation and personal reflection of ACWC, which touch upon, in a nutshell, its work processes and mechanisms, its successes and failures, opportunities and challenges. Now, on the second part, I will talk about how CSOs in general and other relevant parties, including academia, can contribute to further develop and realize the expected functions and roles of ACWC. First, my observation and reflection on ACWC. Now, as you know, ACWC has 20 members consisting of 2 representatives from each of ASEAN's 10 member countries, 1 for women and 1 for children's rights. Now, the total of 20 members can be deceiving when in fact only 10 members are putting their thoughts together on child rights or child rights matters, while 10 on women. Now, moreover, each member comes with different affiliations, diverse experience, and expertise. A few members represent their nation CSOs, some are incumbent government officials, some from the academia, while the chair, unfortunately, is a retiree. Now, as a member state representatives, some get paid to do the job, while others do not. So my reflection on this is that ACWC members are not all experts in their assigned roles, and they differ in many aspects. They differ in their views and focus on human rights, because of the 2 groups, one group for women and the other for children. And they also different stance on national versus regional priorities. Some would want to highlight their own national agenda, for example. And also the level of engagement are different, including also political viewpoints. Now, my second observation is that despite the many differences among ACWC members, however, one common responsibility of each member is to represent their country's stand on any issues discussed during any planning and decision-making processes and the final agreement reached. Now, all these are delicately handled because everything has to be done the ASEAN way, which calls for consultation, consensus, and respect. Now, following this, they will have to relay all matters discussed, agreement reached, task assigned, etc., back to their respective country for further consultation and action. Now, in this respect, although the 16th mandate and functions of ACWC in its terms of reference have been nicely laid out, the expected and actual roles played by the 20 representatives in their own countries respectively differ, depending on their capacity, ability, support, motivation, and so on. Now, my reflection on this, not all ACWC members are able to accomplish the tasks they are expected to do back in their own country due to a number of reasons, which sometimes resulted in delays, missing data, and most frustratingly, in-country projects or initiatives not fully consulted, completed, or even executed. Now, another reflection based on my observation here, the terms of reference for ACWC appears comprehensive as far as matters relating to the promotion and protection of the rights of women and children go. However, it still begs the question of whether its members have the capacity and capability to effectively accomplish all the 16 mandates and functions. Now, this relate to, our expectations and reality. Okay. Now, my third observation, what I can observe during my affiliation with ACWC is that the members, despite the differences, have been put together within ACWC by having to look at ways and means of upholding the rights of women and children for the whole of ASEAN, but not for any particular member country. So the reason for this is that the primary responsibility to promote and protect the fundamental freedom and rights of women and children rests with each ASEAN member country. So to that effect, the predominant step for all members to take is to collectively develop declarations, plans of actions, guidelines, etc., on related issues which impact ASEAN in general, and thus to put their national differences and priorities aside. And my reflection on this is that ACWC focuses a lot more on common issues prevalent across the ASEAN region as a matter of solidarity and comradeship, while individual member states often have different sets of priorities. Now, another reflection, many of the current projects undertaken by ACWC are very much influenced and guided by instruments and declarations spearheaded by international bodies or organizations, many of which have been ratified by all ASEAN member states, except maybe for a few members which still express and maintain their reservations. The focus on ASEAN's own values and priorities, however, has somewhat been sidelined due to our international commitments, as well as the continuous support or maybe, pressure from development and dialogue partners. My next observation, I try to cover, as much as is possible, and please do warn me if I, spend too much time here. Now, my next observation is that ACWC's operation is primarily driven by a work plan. Each member country may propose projects which are expected to benefit a relatively large, if not all, of ASEAN member countries. The work plan is just a plan. A number of projects in the last 2016 to 2020 work plan did not work as planned, so to speak, largely due to lack of financial or institutional support. Another issue I wish to raise is related to duplication of projects, which saw the number of proposed projects rather needlessly large to the point that a few would be considered uneconomical to implement. However, despite these many challenges, I'm glad to say that there are a number of projects which have been successfully implemented, while a few still require further extensions to be brought forward to the next work plan 2021-2025. Now, my reflection again on this issue is that the preoccupation with the work plan means a lot of time is spent on preparing and submitting project proposals, waiting for approvals, and constantly searching for funds. My experience is that, we run around just to get the support to implement projects. Now, ongoing projects, on the other hand, may continue to be implemented in different phases until completion. Now, some of which may take the whole of the whole 5-year period. Now, this takes, longer to have an effect. Yeah. And then another reflection on this is that the emphasis given principally on the work plan has sidetracked or delayed the execution of ACWC's other responsibilities, which may necessarily also include focusing on emerging issues, both at the national and regional level. And maybe the reason being that we are not able to accomplish all the 16 mandates is the focus given on the work plan itself. Now, my next observation, this is the fifth observation, I suppose. Now, at this present moment, ACWC is finalizing its 2021-2025 work plan. Now, thankfully, the plan looks promising. I think my sister Yuyum there has already studied the next work plan and perhaps brief our new Indonesian rep, for children. Now, the planned projects in the new work plan will be listed according to themes with priority outputs and intended results, which in turn would enable effective monitoring and evaluation according to specific time-bound indicators, for each project. Now, one particular point of interest, excuse me, is that the plan will clearly define the key areas of work as mandated in the TOR, which can be grouped into 4 main focus areas. The first is advocate. Miss Yuyum.
Yep.
The second one is what? Collaborate.
Capacity building, awareness
Capacity
raising.
building, and the other is weave and mainstream. Now, my reflection on is that the 2021-25 work plan is a lengthy and well-written piece of document, which, as the saying goes, does not leave any stones unturned, just like the ACWC TOR, right? Now, the success of the plan, however, would rest on our motivation and political will, as well as our capacity and capability to fulfill the much needed impetus and support from all stakeholders. Now, another reflection is that the focus on collaboration is a welcome move. However, there still remains a question on how much collaboration is required and who are these collaborators and how willing are they to fully engage and help advance the ACWC agenda. All right, so maybe some of you will be able to respond to that question later. Now, my next observation is that now, since the beginning of 2021, despite the many limitations brought about by the COVID-19 pandemic, ACWC has been actively involved in a number of projects which are still in the works in collaboration with other ASEAN sectorial bodies and development partners. Now, this project, among others, include the...
Dato, sorry,
Yes.
your time is rest around 3 minutes.
All right.
More.
Now, these
Okay.
projects, thank you. I'll try to do this faster. Now, these projects, among others, include ASEAN Gender Mainstreaming Strategic Framework, which I believe will soon be launched. Development of the ASEAN Regional Plan of Action on Women, WPS, as mentioned by Ambassador just now. Development of ASEAN Plan of Action on the Culture of Prevention. And then development of a declaration on the elimination and of bullying against children in ASEAN. Development of Regional Plan of Action on protection of children from all forms of online exploitation and abuse, and so on and so forth. Now, my reflection, excuse me. Now, the projects still under development or in implementation stages are largely in the form of action plans, policy guidelines, declarations, which are all long-term in nature. Now, the ASEAN Comprehensive Recovery Framework, or ACRF, which encapsulates many of the above projects, also appear to take a similar form, long-term. Now, taking into consideration the current pandemic and political situation impacting us all across the region, how and when can we effectively begin to urgently assist our peoples, alleviate their hardships, yeah, especially during this pandemic. Now, these are some of my observations and reflections. I hope that satisfies His Excellency Mr. Lambert Grains, yeah, that I've already described my observation and reflections. Now, these are solely mine and may not necessarily reflect the viewpoint of ACWC. And furthermore, I must reiterate that these reflections are not excuses, but rather a reality check, yeah, which many of us here may already have known. Yeah? Ms. Yuyum, I think you know a lot more than I do. Now, the expectations by all stakeholders for ACWC to perform better are always high. But in reality, ACWC has always been handicapped by its limited ability and capacity to cope with real-time issues transpiring within our community. I do really hope that the new work plan will at least change the way ACWC functions and better discharge its responsibilities. Now, I will proceed very quickly to the second part of my talk on how external parties, particularly CSO, academia, think tanks, can contribute to further advance the cause undertaken by ACWC in promoting and protecting the rights of women and children. Now, in this respect, my recommendations will revolve around my observation and reflections, as I mentioned above. Now, the first one is relationship. Now, a strong relationship between local CSOs and their country representatives is integral in ensuring the success of any projects or initiatives being planned or implemented. Now, as mentioned earlier, the representative may not have all the necessary capacity to discharge their duties and responsibilities fully. Now, the pool of expertise and vast experience acquired by CSO through expansive networking and real work on the ground is invaluable in assisting to effectively plan, develop, execute, monitor, evaluate any relevant tasks or projects initiated by ACWC. The engagement of CSOs and other concerned parties in this case is sought after. So consultation among relevant parties is therefore key to resolving any matters of concern. So I suppose our new rep, Ms. Yanti, will be the focal point of ACWC in Indonesia, including our women rep. I think Ms. Yuyum can still contribute, yeah, as our liaison officer in Kalimantan, for example. I know Indonesia is very large. There's so many CSOs who are eager, who are willing to help. Yeah, the only issue is how to pull these people together. Yeah. Now, my second suggestion is for CSO to assist ACWC in redirecting its focus more on local priorities, including short-term emerging issues and urgent matters of concern. Now, as I have mentioned earlier, numerous ACWC projects are regional concerns and may take some time to accomplish in such a way that more immediate local issues can possibly develop into cross-border affairs, which are often overlooked. So even though national issues by right should be handled internally by each member country, but in my opinion, CSOs and other relevant parties do have a role to play in conveying these matters to ACWC via their appointed representative for further deliberation and necessary action if required. Now, another related aspect which I would like to...
Time
yes.
Now it's
Again, I just one more point, yeah?
Okay, one more point, please.
Now, another related aspect which I would like to emphasize is in relation to cultural and religious matters with direct reference to upholding the rights of women and children. Now, these are often considered sensitive when talking about universal rights and still remain as sticking points which need to be resolved. So I believe this is an area where CSOs and the academia can do a really deep dive as to how to amicably clarify and differentiate between spiritual or cultural observance and societal obligations, yeah, on declaration, convention, and so on and so forth. So the last point, please, Yuyum, give me a few more minutes. Now, with regard to the new comprehensive and encompassing 21-25 ACWC work plan, I should reiterate that collaborations with external parties, CSOs, think tanks, academia, have been fully noted and highly emphasized. Yeah. Now, I think what we need to do now is for the CSOs to pull together and come forward. Yeah. And you know, just like our partners, for example, you know, like UNICEF, UN Women, and so on, so forth, Plan International, they are there. They participated in our open sessions and so on. So I would want, you know, other CSOs. I mean, pull them together. Not what I think. I should mention that, you know, apart from providing technical and financial assistance, I think that is not really important. What is important is the resulting impact. Yeah, so that is most important. So collaboration is what we need here. So thank you very much. Thank you for your time. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Dato. Is inspiring us to talk about ourselves actually to the other people. This is a fact actually from your observation during the children representative from Brunei and Darussalam. I don't want to talk much. Actually, I know that situation, but we are agree on that. But I hope next future we will better and get more engaging from the CSOs and the academia. And you said the very important is about the impact on the result, right? It's not only the work plan and the work plan, but no action in the national level. That's we hope in future. Thank you, Bapak. I think this is a give us more knowledge, more information about the challenges, opportunities, and the opportunity engaging with the other people in the ACWC. Thank you so much, Dato. And next, we will invite for the moderator and the panelists. Continue with the panelists is His Excellencies Miss Yanti Kusumawardani. She is now a new representative, Indonesia representative to the ACWC for the Children Right. Welcome, Ibu Yanti. Oke, salam kenal dan kita baru hari ini tatap muka.
Yes,
Okay,
thank you, Mbak Yuyu.
Okay, now I will read his background. Actually, Miss Yanti Kusumawardani is a child protection specialist at the Save the Children Indonesia. Miss Yanti is dedicated to the work on the child right, child protection, disability inclusion issues, and social work practice for the 20 years. In 2015, she was honored by Minister of Social Affairs as talented social worker. Miss Yanti received her MSW degree from University of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania in US. Along with her master degrees, she obtained certification on social work in child, youth, and family welfare. In her current work, Ms. Yanti is responsible to support the prevention, response, and legal reform in regard to the child protection system, both on the national and local level. She is also regional trainer for parenting without violence, Save the Children common approach to ensure all children are protected from physical and humiliating punishment, especially at home. Ms. Yanti is currently pursuing international accreditation in child protection from CHE UK, CACHE UK. I think this is the short biography from Ms. Yanti. I hope during the presentation, she is new from the ACWC. She also can give more insight about the better ACWC in future, especially how to engage the CSOs and academia in future in ACWC. Ibu Yanti, the time is yours now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mbak Yuyu. Please allow me to share screen on my presentations. Let me try to find it here. Hold on. Okay. Sorry, it's quite difficult to find my my presentations. I don't know why it's not here.
Maybe just close first. After that, you
Oh.
can open.
Okay, it's here actually.
Yep.
Hold on. Okay. Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, and distinguished speakers that already in this virtual room. I am very honored actually to be here as Indonesian representative for Asian Commissions for the Promotions and Protections of the Rights of Women and Children, or ACWC, especially for children's rights. Thank you for the invitations to the Asian Studies Center, Universitas Gadjah Mada, with the support of Embassy of Kingdom of the Netherlands. First of all, I would like to inform you that this is actually my very first month in ACWC. Yeah, I have consulted many things with Mbak Yuyum and Mbak Yuyun here. There sounds like twins, but actually different per people. Yeah. So this is my first month at ACWC, and I have not had the opportunities to attend any official ACWC meetings yet so far, which I think it will come very soon in October. So therefore, what I am presenting today may not exactly meet your expectations. And it is more about the general perspective on engaging academic community and CSO in protecting children that some of you may have already familiar with. Yeah. So, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as mentioned by Dato Junaidi, that ACWCs have mandates and functions. I will not read each of them because there are 16 of them, but it is important to return back to what Dato Junaidi has mentioned previously, that not all of the mandates will be completed, but our focus in ACWC is on the work plan that is still on my learning agenda. I have received the work plan, and that will be discussed internally. Regarding to the rights of the children, I think this one is a picture that you have been familiar with in relations to the ACWC mandates. You know, in doing the mandates, the ACWC shall engage in dialogue and consultations as may be appropriate with other national, regional, and international institutions and entities concerning the promotions and protections of the rights of women and children. So this picture might be very familiar with most of you, where it explained that the central of the idea of human rights, including CRC, is establishing and sustaining the relationship between the right holders, who has the rights, and in this context is the children, and the duty bearer, who has the obligations to fulfill the rights. And the duty bearer is the persons or institutions who have obligations and responsibilities in relations to realizations of the rights of children, which are the state, along with non-state responsibility holders such as parents, guardian, caregiver. They have duties and obligations under the CRC, legally binding them to respect, protect, and fulfill children's rights. So children up to 18 years of age are considered rights holder and active participations in child rights realizations, who must be empowered and participate to make claims and hold duty bearers to account for upholding children's rights. Yeah. So this also responds to what I have mentioned. So in regards to the role of CSOs and academic community, CSOs, academic forum have also responsibilities to support the state in undertaking the obligations as the duty bearer, yeah, in fulfilling the rights of children. Could be in forms of advocacy, capacity building, ensuring and providing access to services for children and families as well. And also in response to what have mentioned by Dato Junaidi, that in COVID situations, there are a lot of difficult situations that have been encountered by children and their families. For example, like access to services that, it becomes more limited for children to access the services that they actually need and required as part of their rights. That might be services to medical services, to educations, to many other, including the protections, services of protections. And there are also challenges for children with disabilities to access this kind of services as well. It becomes limited for them to access the services that they need during the COVID pandemic. And you also already familiar that children with disabilities have more risk to COVID. And in terms of violence against children, there are a lot of research and data that shows the increase in child protection cases during the COVID pandemic. So there's also concern recently about children who becomes orphans when their parents or caregiver affected by COVID. And the number is increasing, and there is a support from UNICEF in providing the database system in terms of this, and according to the database that I received from Ministry of Women Empowerment and Child Protection in 20th of August, there are like 3,730 children impacted for being orphaned because their parents or caregiver affected by COVID. So those kind of issues might be encountered in daily basis and handled as part of groundwork of CSOs and also the academic community. So it's very important for them to contribute in picturing this emerging issues to support the state in undertaking the obligations as the duty bearer in response to those kind of situations, especially the COVID pandemic. And also, there is a role for CSO and academic community to support, to contribute to the CRC alternative report in order to support the government efforts on implementing CRC, including ensuring child participations, because sometimes this is the one that, left behind, involving child participations into the report, because we need to hear their perspective, their opinion about how the state fulfilling their rights. The number 3 is that besides CSO, the academic community may also support by undertaking research that could be foundation work on measures to child rights realizations. For example, if I may share some example on this research, is that the research that were undertaken in 2004, it's called Someone That Matters, maybe Mas Ali familiar with this. And that was conducted by UNICEF, Ministry of Social Welfare, Save the Children, and School of Social Welfare. So this report is the very first comprehensive research on the quality of care in childcare institutions in Indonesia. This becomes the stepping stone for further collaboration across sectors, government, CSO, academic forum, and many more, on enhancing family-based care program including the alternative care for children. Yeah, and also, in addition to that, CSOs and academic community may contribute to implementing the concluding observations of CRC that is beneficial as foundation work to measure the child right realizations. The CRC observations is very important as guidance on ensuring our measure to fulfill children's rights in Indonesia, especially since it has specific recommendations on each issues presented and also the CRC principles. So for example, if I may share as well, the concluding observations from 2004, where it talked about children deprived of their family environment. There is an issues concern about the high number of children who are placed in institutions. And one of the recommendations to the state party from the Committee of Child Rights at that moment is undertaking a comprehensive study to assess the situation of children placed in the institutions. So the comprehensive study that I mentioned here was that the Someone That Matters that previously mentioned, undertaken by UNICEF, Ministry of Social Affairs and Save the Children, and as well as School of Social Welfare. So all of them worked together in response to the recommendation number 1, undertaking a comprehensive study as a way to monitor the concluding observations on the CRC. So there are many other part of the concluding observations. For example, that violence against children, there's an issue, high number of child victims of violence, abuse, and neglect. And the recommendations here is also about expanding current efforts on addressing the problem of child abuse and neglect. And all of this recommendation, I think, won't be easy without building collaborations, or the excellency mentions about networking, because the CSO are the one who have the groundwork in regards to violence against children.
Miss Yanti?
Yes?
3 minutes left. Please.
Okay, I have like 2 other slides. Thank you, Miriam. So the last one example is on children with disabilities. Of course, as mentioned by Dato Junaidi, is that we have to ensure that our work, especially in ACWC, is to mainstream gender and inclusive, how to become inclusive, as also mentioned by Padafri, how to be inclusive, disability inclusive, and gender mainstream, gender sensitive. So there is also a recommendation from the concluding observations in terms of providing services and rehabilitation service centers for children with disabilities. And from the recommendations, it might require the work with organization of people with disabilities, because nothing about us without us. So that is principles that help us to collaborate and remind us to collaborate with the DPOs or OPDs in terms of fulfilling the rights of children with disabilities, to make it more accurate, especially in terms of providing the database, because it's one of the challenges when we talk about the database on children with disabilities. Someone said that it's only God and the children that knows how many of them in our countries, actually. So one last slide. This is one example of how CSO contributes to Indonesia regulations on childcare. This is about alternative care, how we ensure that children are, in their primary care within their families, and avoid preventions, because separations between children and family might affect them in long term. So when that needs to happen, we have to provide alternative care. And the forms of alternative care are here, and the regulations underneath those were discussed and developed with support of CSOs, as mentioned in the very bottom. Yeah, there's also Save the Children, Muhammadiyah, School of Social Welfare, National Forum of Childcare Institutions, SOS, and many more. So that's only in examples as part of my presentations. I hope my presentations meet the time and meet your expectation. Thank you so much, Mbak Yuyum. That's all from me. Salam.
Okay, thank you, Mbak Yanti. I think this is an interesting presentation about the need of children, actually, and how they engage from the CSOs. This is clear under the CRC and also the academia to support the implementation of the children right in Indonesia. Actually, I would like to inform you also, many of the general comment now from the CRC committee already issued. For example, now they have the general comment on digital environment, and then the general comment and climate change. I think this is new also for the general comment from the CRC committee. And also, we have a closer with the chair of the CRC now. This is Miss Mikiko to talk about the children issue in ASEAN. I think next also we can invite her to be a speaker in here. And for the Miss Yanti mentioned about how important of the CSOs and the academia to support the implementing of the CRC and also the CEDAW report. And maybe now we have the UPR and the Universal Periodic Report also. This is engaged from the more CSO and the academia. Okay, thank you, Ibu Yanti, for your presentation. And for the other participant, if you have a question, please don't forget with the Slido to take your question in there. Just typing. After that, my colleague from the ASEAN Study Center can see. This is the sum of the information. But later I will read this, right? Okay, now we have the third speaker. This is from. See, I let the paper first. Miss Yanti Kusumawardani. I know her. She is a beauty woman now and very busy. She is a director of Puskapa, Center on Child Protection and Wellbeing at the Universitas of Indonesia. I will read her background. Dr. Yanti Kusumawardani is Director of Principal Investigator of Puskapa, Center of Child Protection and Wellbeing, a think tank based on Universitas Indonesia. She is an adjunct assistant professor for population of family health at Mailman School Public Health, Columbia University, and she also teaches at the Criminology Department, Universitas of Indonesia. She does research to inform action, turn evidence into policies proposal, undertake advocacy and program implementation, and mobilizes young people capacity to reform Indonesia's protection and care system. Civil registration and data governance and access to justice, so all children enjoy equal opportunity to thrive. She was trained in the criminology and social policy in Universitas Indonesia and got her doctorate in public health from Columbia University. In the academic world, Yanti seeks to build scientific and ethical rigor in social justice. Yanti has published in among all the Lancet, PLOS 1, and BMC International Health and Human Rights. I think she's a long background and very, very famous actually in the round of the children.
Famous between you and I.
Okay, Ibu Yanti, the floor is yours now. please.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Mbak Yuyum. We know like way back. I also have some old friends here. But Mbak Yuyum, if you can extend me the same courtesy of time, because the previous speakers, especially when the first speaker went over, sometimes it's the following speakers who have to adjust our time. But I promise you I won't go beyond
But not more
10
than
or
10 minutes, huh?
I hope so, yeah, because the previous ones also went over. But Mbak Yanti did quite well. Okay, so I think I'm gonna begin this presentation by admitting or recognizing that I have so little knowledge about ASEAN, Mbak Yuyum and Mbak Yuyun, both my friends whom Mbak Yanti called twins before. But I think when it comes to child rights, we all have this binding purpose, and I think it goes beyond limitations of institutions or agencies or governance or whatever. So I'm gonna take my 10 minutes in trying to, I think, bring the abstract concept of child rights into what we are now in the middle of, which is the pandemic, and really bring some evidence from the country, unfortunately just Indonesia. But I'm gonna highlight a couple of points which I think are shared concerns across borders among our ASEAN friends, because I think we also share a lot of similarities in terms of challenges when it comes to child protection. So I think I'm sure we all know by now that this virus has, of course, turned our lives upside down, but in a way that it reminds us of our previous homeworks. And that is to make sure that everyone, when it comes to a situation like this, would have the same opportunities and capacity to survive and thrive. And I think this is probably highlights our biggest homework, including for ASEAN member countries, because this virus can, the way it transmits and spreads, of course, it can affect anyone, but the chance of survival is different because everyone comes from a different context and everyone comes with different capacity. And those differences are the ones we need to address openly. So the whole presentation we'll talk about, I think it's an invitation for ASEAN member countries and for ASEAN governing bodies to really think about risks when it comes to responding to this pandemic, and when it comes to preparing for the recovery stage once Indonesia is able to manage the spread of the transmission. Because what we need to always remember is that the previously vulnerable, the ones who are without access to their rights before the pandemic happened, still in the same situation or even worse. And the responses we give might inflict new risks for them, or those who before are not vulnerable are now in a more at-risk situation because of the emerging risks during this pandemic. So I think my main idea is that the best protection, so when it comes to fulfilling children's rights, all those abstract concepts, the best protection for them and for the vulnerable young people and adults surrounding them and are given the task to protect them should come with the priority that recognize the layers of risks these children have. And I have this sort of framework of thinking when it comes to unpacking what are those risks for children. So at the first layer, you would see, or you would be able to identify children in your countries who are vulnerable because they are lacking access. And this is access to basic services, health, education, legal identity, social protection, health insurance, and so forth. And usually this first layer of vulnerability is inflicted due to poverty, remoteness, and immobility. So the first layer really associates with what they have. But then let's imagine our countries are able to provide access equally for everyone. There will still be children who are facing risks because the services are not ready and are not responsive to address their special needs. And this is a vulnerability, the layer that are associated with the quality, accessibility, and accountability of public services. And sometimes in a simply geographical manner, it really makes a difference whether you're a child in Jakarta or you're a child in Jayapura. You meet the same services, it's health services, but the capacity might differ. And so you are facing that kind of vulnerability because of where you are and what kind of public services you're dealing with. And then let's imagine we have addressed all these two layers. There still be children who, because of who they are, because of their social identity, are being discriminated against when it comes to accessing their basic rights. And this is due to their age, gender, ability, religion, ethnicity, and you name it, all these social identity traits. And basically, it tells us that there are children who are being discriminated or are vulnerable because of who they are. And the challenges for us when it comes to what Dato mentioned before, like planning, strategizing, evidence-based policy proposal, and so forth, comes in addressing the issues in the bottom layer, because as you go down, the evidence will become more anecdotal instead of population-based. So you might have now more information about what poverty does to a child, but it's really, really hard to get a population-based sort of data and numbers when it comes to discrimination. And it comes to us and bodies like ASEAN to recognize that there are different types of evidence. And it's about how you collect them. It's about how you make them rigorous so you can use them in your work. So it doesn't have to be numbers, but even for anecdotal data, it has to be a rigor data as well. This is very important. I think I would invite everybody to start adapting to that kind of framework of thinking, in thinking about what the government should be doing now in terms of responding for survival, what we should be preparing for recovery and rehabilitation. And let's remind the government on and on that this is the time to regovern the way you do things and the way you look at multidimensionality of vulnerability and risks. So I have a couple of points here, Mbak Yuyum, if you allow me. First, because we know that children, and Yanti has mentioned this before, children are affected directly by the disease, but they also bear the consequences when it's their caregivers who are affected. And Yanti has put in her presentation, but I'd like to just point out that it's also health issues or death of loved ones. It's the loss of caregivers' income as well. It's the shifting or compromised caregiving capacities. And it's changes in loss of caregiving and social supports. And this morning, I had this informal discussion with a colleague at the university, and I reminded them that, you have to watch out of how many female students are dropping out now from our classes because they have to take over the responsibility of caregiving, because that's just how the norm works in their household. Taking care of their dad, taking care of their siblings. So we need to really watch out of this really like granular sort of symptoms in our own respective work and field and offices, and make sure that we don't allow that to happen under our watch. No female students, no female workers should lose their job or should lose their seat at the university or in school because they have to take over caregiving responsibilities at home. Second, we know that at-risk children also face the multidimensional consequences of the pandemic. And these are the 6 types of risk that I would like to just highlight here. And you can read all of this in our, for example, we published this policy paper in collaboration with UNICEF as well, with the government of Indonesia, and really unpacking what are the new emerging dimension of risks that children and vulnerable adults are experiencing right now. And many of the previous speakers have mentioned this. But I think it should be highlighted once again that as our lives shifted to digital and online platforms, the same goes with the risks. It follows us. So violence, bullying in a schoolyard now moves to online platforms and online bullying and online exploitation and so on and so forth. Meanwhile, the availability and the quality of basic services are compromised by, by having to shift to digital platforms at the same time. 3, we need to really recognize who are the vulnerable. And I propose 3 different ways to do it. First are those whose risk can be estimated using existing data. One of the similarities across ASEAN countries is that they have these national surveys. And in Indonesia, it's called SUSENAS, the socioeconomic survey done annually. And then we can estimate the magnitude, the numbers of children who are at risk of, for example, living in poor and extremely poor households, but also remember children who are being taken care of by female head of household, for example, because it might signal different kind of risk. And because there are still child marriage, we also need to estimate the number of children being taken care of by head of household who are children themselves. And this is sometimes missing from the conversation about this pandemic response, and so on and so forth. This material can actually be downloaded after this. The second one is to use program data, like Yanti mentioned before. For example, data that looks at children in institutional care facilities, or children who are outside of panti, outside of institution, but who are receiving assistance from social workers. Who are they? Who are them? Where they are? How many of them? And always remember that whatever number we obtain is always an underestimate, because the problem is always bigger than what we can see on paper. And lastly, the most invisible ones, who are undocumented or stigmatized and therefore never made visible on the statistical maps. Fourth, this is a second to last, there are risks emerge from the lack of identity documents and inadequate population registration system. This is one of the key highlights I would like to present here, because I think it's a shared concern across different countries, and especially it's there on the SDG target as well, to provide universal legal identity document. And we know that when children are not registered, it carries a risk across the life cycle. And these are just a couple of numbers I'd like to highlight here. For example, we run data from SUSENAS 2019, and we found that there are still over 1 million elderly and over 40,000 people with disability who did not have an NICA, or a single identification number, which is the door to Indonesia's many complex legal identity document system. And without this, without being able to open the door, then you will be blocked from many public services, requiring you to provide NICA before you can get some services. For example, the COVID-19 vaccination. I just want to remind everybody of that. And then there are still about 6 million under 5s who are without a birth certificate in the country. And although the birth registration trend seems to go upward, we need to be critical and look at where's the under 5 and where's the under 1, because the unregistered under 1 is a symptomatic of our problematic at birth registration. And when it goes on like this, they will become unable to access all of the basic services needed to survive this pandemic and to thrive beyond that. I'd just like to, yes. So for example, our studies has indicated that lacking a legal identity documents can be associated with lacking complete basic immunization, lacking access to health insurance, literacy, poverty, and also school enrollment. And you can download all the studies in our website. Lastly, I would like to remind everyone that when it comes to child rights, we know two major principles. Rights are interdependence, and rights are invisible, something like that. So it really connects one to another, and one really depends on the other in terms of their successes or their failures. And this is where I think the work of ASEAN comes to matter. It's in these intersections, because poverty never stands alone. Poverty comes with unequal access to services and opportunities. Poverty comes with risks of violence and discrimination. Poverty intersects with risks of emergencies, including climate-induced emergencies, including health pandemic like this one. But we cannot really do much with these intersections if the response is always in a silo. So, for example, I'm gonna skip this because Yanti mentioned this, but I'd like to just point out that the government immediate response to, for example, children being left behind by parents who died because of COVID is social, like cash assistance. And there should be more than that, because caregiving is more about cash assistance. It's about having social workers, working, supporting families, supporting communities, doing complete assessment of what the needs are, planning for their care and social services, and so on and so forth. And this is just also a number I just like ran this morning with my team, that there are also still quite a large number of children estimated being cared for by in at-risk households, while Indonesia lacks social workers, and we don't necessarily have a comprehensive social care and support system. And I think I'm going to stop here, and we can talk about what we can do as a community. And I'm inviting everyone to download all these different studies in our website. Thank you, Mbak Yuyum.
Okay, thank you, Mbak. A lot of information actually from academy article. She's talk more about the data that make me speechless actually. About the data is actually very difficult to get it, but Puskapa can inform us about the many of data about the children issues during the pandemic, and then the other issues about the children institution, and the current issues come up in Indonesia about the single number of the citizen, no more induk kependudukan. I think this is more challenges in future, but already advocate by the some of the CSOs to support the government, how to minimize, I think, the number of the children without the single identity. Because if they didn't get identity, Mbak Santi already mentioned, a lot of issues or problem will facing by the children itself in future. And then thank you, Mbak Santi. I think this is a very important information based on the data and comprehensive presentation about the children. And also this is good for the CSOs also to know about the comprehensive issues about the children, and we can engage together in future how to support the ACWC maybe get the more information about these issues, and maybe also this is happen not only in Indonesia but also happen in the 10th ASEAN member state. Thank you, Mbak Santi. And then now we have the last but not least for the panelists in here. We have Miss Russell Tan. She is a program officer and focal point for Women, Gender, and Diversity Working Group of the Asia Pacific Refugees Rights Network, APRRN. And then I will read the background of the Miss Russell Tan. I think this is the first time. Oh, we met. Okay, this is the first time.
Yeah, first time.
Okay. I think you should involve in our LPA for the children in contact of migration. That's a new produced by the ACWC.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Mr. Russell Tan is the advocate for migrants, refugees, and people in the need of protection. After a year of being in the corporate sector, she joined a grassroots organization in Malaysia known as Tena Ganita. Tena Ganita. I knew heard about the Tena Ganita. Okay, working on a range of issues, including trafficking, labor violation, and violence against women. She is now a program officer at the Asia Pacific Regional Rights Network, a network organization with over 200 active members with diverse backgrounds and expertise, working together to advance refugees' rights in the region. I think she can give another side from the refugees issues and women and children, and also how we can see the interesting presentation from the side of the refugees and networking. Now, Ms. Russell Tan, this time is yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ibu. I will not be having any slides today. Thank you so much for the introduction. And I think this will be the first of many engagement that we might have with you. So for those of you who do not know, I am from an organization called Asia Pacific Refugee Rights Network. In short, it's APRIN. And we have actually been established around the time when ACWC was established in 2010. And we are quite similar in the things in our work focus area as well: capacity building, advocacy, and weaving. So our membership is really diverse. Just a short introduction about what we do. Our membership is made up of legal practitioners, refugee-led organizations, people who are in the academia, think tanks, those who are working on the ground, the NGOs, and also those who are working on advocacy in different levels: national, regional, and international. So some of them are in resettlement countries like Australia, New Zealand, and some of them are in host countries. Some of them are in the countries where refugees come from. So like I mentioned, our work is also focused in three areas, which is joint advocacy, capacity strengthening, and information and resource sharing. So a lot of the presentation or a lot of the points that I'm going to present today is really revolving around forced displacement. And I would start with a quick overview of the forced migration situation in the region. So in the Asia Pacific region, according to UNHCR, we have about 9.2 million people of concern, including about 4.4 refugees and asylum seekers, 3.3 million people who are internally displaced, and about 2 million who are stateless. And the largest population of concern to UNHCR in the Southeast Asia region, of course, comes from Myanmar. And this includes Bangladesh. We have about 1.1 million refugees and asylum seekers who are from Myanmar, and about 600,000 stateless Rohingya who remain in Myanmar. And of course, everyone is aware that in the recent times, Myanmar, particularly in the month of February, we saw a coup and the escalating violence that has taken place that has caused people to flee the country. And just in August, we have seen what has happened in Afghanistan, where Taliban is rapidly, forcefully taking control of virtually all of Afghanistan following the United States military withdrawal. And Taliban authorities increasingly restrict women's rights, media freedom, as they have in the areas previously controlled. And of course, the ongoing crisis with the Rohingya is still very evident and evidently seen even in the effects overspilling to Indonesia. And as I quote these huge numbers, I want everyone to bear in mind that about 50% of the refugees and displaced persons in the region are really women, and slightly less than that are children. So we, of course, have been living with a global health crisis in this past 2 years, leaving many of us vulnerable. And as you know, the virus really does not discriminate. COVID-19 has really hit with the greatest severity, disproportionately affecting marginalized and poor communities. And this is especially true with people in dire need of protection, such as refugees and other people who are forcibly displaced. And we are also talking about existing inequalities that has been in place even pre-COVID. Now we are seeing these existing inequalities and deprivation further worsening. And women and children, they face an added layer of vulnerability, right? That is compounded by risk of violence, by risk of exploitation and abuse during this time. And with the political instability and violence that we're seeing in our own region, in Myanmar and Afghanistan, women and children are, I really liked what Ibu Santi said, and how she portrayed the intersection between the vulnerabilities faced by women and children. And indeed, women and children face this added layer of vulnerability within these intersections. And 3/4 of them, of refugees and asylum seekers, including women and children, are living in overcrowded camps, settlements, makeshift shelters, where they often lack access to adequate healthcare, protection, and sanitation. And in 2020, we have actually seen the deadliest year. It's the deadliest year for the Rohingya Sea journey. By the fourth quarter of the year, I think at least 2,400 Rohingya refugees, which is a significant number, and a majority of them, who are women and children, took very dangerous journeys, risking their lives in search of safety and better protection. And even in June, we saw some 80 Rohingya refugees, after about 4 months being at sea, landing in Pulau Idaman off the coast of East Aceh. And the count of deaths at sea really don't stop people from moving, because the situation is really dire, it's protracted, and people are really desperate, and they will continue to seek a durable solution. And we will continue to see this happening. And we are also seeing crackdowns in the region, mass arrests of pregnant women, young girls, children as young as a few months old being taken to detention centers, separated from their families. And I would take this moment to say that the protection of stateless, displaced migrants and refugees are really critical to the human security in this entire region. So I'm going to take us through a process that has happened in 2019 particularly. So in December of 2019, there was a crucial document, the Global Compact on Refugees, or the GCR, that was affirmed by UN states in the General Assembly in the inaugural Global Refugee Forum. And what this Global Compact on Refugees, or GCR, is basically a new comprehensive model with improved response to refugee situation for the global community to kind of involve more equitable and predictable responsibility sharing amongst a broader range of actors. So the work really started in 2016 when members of UN states are asked to commit to improving the protection of refugees and migrants, as stated in the New York Declaration. And many ASEAN and Asia Pacific states, many civil society actors, including APRIN members, have engaged consistently in this process. So in the initial drafting of the GCR, women was actually only mentioned once. And with consistent engagement, researchers who are our members, Linda Bartolome and Dr. Eileen Pitaway, they were officially commissioned by UNHCR to conduct the gender audit process throughout the drafting. And during that time, they were leading the gender audit in the different thematic meetings to inform the drafting of the program of action, to ensure that the agenda of women and girls, the agenda of gender and diversity is included. So this gender audit process really is a processing commitments made to the refugee women and girls in the GCR to ensure gender equality, to ensure implementation of UNHCR age, gender and diversity policy, and also to address the different needs of women and men across the life cycle, including childhood, adolescence, and also talking about the impact of discrimination based on sexuality and gender identity and disability. To address SGBV as well, sexual and gender-based violence, in the different process, in the sponsorship, in the pledging, in the co-conveners process. So this, what the gender audit also does is basically to document examples of good practice in the different areas. And so we have this document that is on a higher level, that's on the international level. And what does it mean when we talk about how is it being implemented on the ground? So what I'm going to do is really to draw an example with what our members have done in the ASEAN region, in working in collaboration with CSOs, working in collaboration with UN agencies and academia. So like I mentioned, the University of New South Wales, the Forced Migration Research Network, are the ones leading a project. So this project is in collaboration with, in partnership with APRIN. And what we have seen is that, okay, the GCR has all these strong commitments to gender equality, to meaningful participation, to support women leadership, and to end sexual and gender-based violence in the refugee setting. But how does that look like on the ground? So the project really supports some of these commitments and to kind of improve the international protection within different countries. And what this project does is that it works in very close partnership with different actors. So we work together very closely with refugee women, with academics, with service providers, with the UN agency, which is specifically UNHCR, in 4 different countries: Malaysia, Thailand, Bangladesh, and Myanmar. And they all have very different environments, different political direction in terms of refugee protection, and also in terms of where refugees are. Some are urban refugees and some are refugees living in camps. So this project was led in focus on gender equality, to promote self-representation, especially of women and girls, to work together with a network of people to develop and trial a suite of tools for implementation, to monitor and to evaluate the commitments that has been made on this level, to find out how it can be implemented here and how it can be monitored here. And these are all addressing the 4 pillars of the what we call the comprehensive refugee response framework. Now, some of the key activities in this project is that we have done consultations with refugee women, with service providers in the 4 countries. So because of Myanmar's situation, we really only focused the project in 3 countries: Bangladesh, Malaysia, and Thailand, which is specifically the Thai-Burma border. And we have identified together with the refugees and the service providers the existing gender-related gaps and challenges on the ground, what are some of the good and promising practices that are already happening despite of the lack of frameworks, domestic laws around refugee protection, and also what are some of the potential alternative tools and approaches that people are recommending. So we work together very closely with the refugee women in each site to identify participatory approaches for implementing some of these commitments. And the project actually has evolved from what it was initially set out, because it started in 2018, but because of COVID, we weren't able to go to the sites and we weren't able to carry out what we had intended to do. So we had to be very flexible in the direction and how we expand the project. And what was set out initially has now evolved into a response to COVID-19 projects. COVID-19 situation. And the community is one of our key partners. CSOs are key partners. UN agencies also key partner. And we need to bring everyone together to speak together in the same room, informing what is needed on the ground. So this project really shows us that one size doesn't fit all, because as I mentioned, this cuts across 3 different countries. And in the 3 different countries, we are seeing different levels of involvement of refugees, different levels of involvement of UN agencies, and also CSOs. In Thai-Burma border, we see that refugee women are leading the COVID-19 response and the small projects that we're carrying out. In Malaysia, refugee women have a equal partnership with the CSOs and UNHCR, and whereas in Bangladesh, it's more of a participatory process for the refugee women. So, as you know, among ASEAN member states, only 2 have ratified the 1951 Convention and 1967 Protocol, which is Philippines and Cambodia. Now, we are looking to build and create a model that works within the structure, within the domestic framework, and within its limitations, while advocating for greater refugee protection. So coming up with a model that works within the structure is something that the project also seeks to do. And again, I would like to emphasize that consultation with refugee women really cannot be understated. A consultation with the CSOs, because everyone holds a different level of knowledge, and we need to work together to identify these gender gaps, identify the challenges, and identify ways forward which are creative, innovative. So we work together with each academic institution and each CSOs and each refugee women in each site. So I would drop a link after this to the project if you are interested. And I think the takeaway from this project is really that engagement with different actors is really critical. And how can we partner together to increase the protection of women and girls in our region? And of course, I'm speaking more of refugee women and girls because that is our mandate in APRIN. But how can we work together to increase the protection of women and girls in our region? How can we capitalize on what's there? Almost all ASEAN states, like Dato has mentioned, are signatories to the CEDAW and CRC. How can we implement some of these, taking into consideration also national priorities? And how can we fulfill obligations under these conventions? How can we look beyond the traditional models, explore practicality, extending beyond the enunciation of law? And, you know,
Ms. Tan, 3 minutes left.
Sure, I'm finishing up soon. And we really want to see the fundamental obligations of protection of refugee women really being met and adhered to. And we want to emphasize that there is a lot of work that needs to be done. But I like what Ibu Santi said, that it really rarely is able to be achieved in silos. So we need to work together. How do we come to a whole of society approach? And I think the ACWC can really play a huge role in coordinating, consulting, engaging in dialogues on different fronts with the different actors to achieve this. So I think having different actors feeding into processes is really critical to help us move forward and to prevent regressive policies from being formed. I think I'll end there now. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much for the Ms. Russell Tan. I think she gave our holistic information about the situation on the refugees, especially for the women, but little bit on the children. I think both of them is a vulnerable, include also in the men in there. I think also I'm agree with you about the only 2 countries already ratify for the convention. That makes our challenges also how we can receive it, the refugees, if they stay for the like 10 years, 8 year in the one countries. That's more problem. And I would like to inform you and all of you in here, where is the ACWC now still ongoing process to get the what we call the adopted for the regional plan for action for the children in the context of migration. Now still ongoing process to circulate to the Samswat to get approval from them, but still have a lot of changes. I heard from the Kun Wanchai about the plan of action on the children in the context of migration, but not on the women side, only for the children. Still a lot of challenges on that. And thank you for the Madam Miss Rachel already give the another insight about the refugee side, how the CSO also the academia can also involve in that issues, because I know a few of the CSOs working together with the UNHCR and academia. I don't heard about that. Maybe later the interesting for them also to work in the refugees issues in future. And now we finish with the first session about the from the panelists, and we call for our discussion. We have 3 discussion in here. His Excellency Miss Yuyun Wahyuningrum. She is ICHA representative from Indonesia. She is my colleague, my friend, and we are twin with the name. And the second, Mr. Ali Aulia Ramli. He is my friend too, a child protection specialist at UNICEF in Indonesia. Halo Mas Ali, apa kabar? Oh, rambutnya kayak ini nih, kayak Mr. Chow ya, rambutnya gitu. Agak beda nih. Okay, and the third, we have a Miss Audrey Lay, Senior Program Manager at International Women Rights Asian Watch, Asia Pacific. I please welcome for the Miss Yuyun first. After that, continue with the Mas Ali and Miss Audrey Lee. I have give you 5 minutes to give response and feedback and the others. Please, Miss Yuyun, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ibu Yuyun. Thank you for the opportunity. I have 5 points to discuss here in 5 minutes. First, I would like to congratulate ACWC and thank you very much for the observation as well as on the issues and this presentation in relation to the issue of women and children in the region. ACWC has been very effective in terms of coming up with number of standard setting, especially on children's rights. Lately, as Dato mentioned earlier, ACWC will come up with the declaration, ASEAN Declaration Against Bullying. So it's very, we don't have the representative of ACWC focusing on women's rights, so we don't know why the child rights groups or child rights representative are more flexible and more active in terms of coming up with the child rights norms. Maybe because of the characteristic of children, less political, I'm not sure. So I actually want to hear the analysis from insider, why on child rights seems like you move very quickly, but not on women's rights. in terms of ICHR, even though we have the mandate to standard setting, but it is not easy for us to come up with declaration. The only famous declaration we have is actually ASEAN Human Rights Declaration. Now we are moving toward the providing the interpretation of the articles inside ASEAN Human Rights Declaration. But I also would like to recognize that the ASEAN Human Rights Declaration put the women's rights are human rights and child rights are human rights. So it's already put the umbrella recognition on the rights. The first point that I would like to mention here, Dato earlier suggested that not all mandates of the TOR can be implemented. But the work plan, the current work plan has been set based on themes. For me, perhaps ACWC can rethink how to define or design the work plan if there is a concern that not all 16 mandates can be implemented. Why not the work plan designed based on the implementation of the work plan? Because actually, I envy ACWC. The mandate of ACWC, the function, the mandate mentioned is more actionable compared with ICHR. So, in the end, ACWC or ICHR will not be asked in terms of accountability how many activities that you have been implemented, but you will be asked. People will seek your responsibilities. How you implement the mandate given to you. So I think, of course, this is only my opinion that within this 16 mandates, you can always have themes under it. In terms of, you can mention about WPS, women, peace and security, and others. So I was just wondering what would be the background, why the theme base of designing the work plan is chosen rather than interpreting or implementing the mandates. So that's one comment that I would like to make. Second is on the effective collaboration. So I'm very happy that Dato, also Ibu Yanti, and all the speakers mentioned about collaboration supports. However, this to be effective, civil society participation, academia participation need to be institutionalized. You need to engage with them in predictable manner. It is not whenever you need, then you engage them. That engagement usually what has been practiced so far based on country. So if the country is more friendly to civil society, you engage with civil society. If the country does not necessarily friendly to civil society, then you don't engage with civil society. So I would like to suggest, rather, if you put the work plan or design the work plan based on the mandate, as mentioned in the TOR, require ACWC to consult, to engage, to have a dialogue with stakeholders. So you may want to consider having the regular consultation with civil society. So civil society will be informed on the development in ACWC. Public information is very important as well, or like a website. So that is another way of engaging with public by providing information. Sometimes as inside the system, I also do not know much about what is happening in ACWC. Maybe ACWC doesn't know what is happening in ICHR too. That is also very important to have a regular meeting between ACWC and ICHR to share what activities, what can be done together. Lately, I think there has been a lot of improvement like ACWC invited ICHR to be part of the working group in terms of the right of women in prison and many other things. So now I just received the request for comments from ACWC on the draft of declaration against bullying on children. So that's the second. And the third, I thank you very much. Santi highlighted the experiences of children during pandemic, and I think this is these voices, experiences need to be need to be recognized and become the aspiration or inspired the creation of the work plan. So the work plan will be responsive to the situation. The work plan will reflect the voices and resilience of women and children in dealing with COVID-19. And since work plan will have span until 2025, the work plan need to be able to respond the world after pandemic for women and children. And to be able to do that, academic, civil society had come up with a number of reports, but ACWC also can consult with women and children to know their experiences, to inform ACWC on the future plan in relation to post-pandemic. I think Ibu Santi mentioned about regovern. So I think that's a very helpful term for all of us, for in national government as well as the regional government. My last point, in response to the situation of Myanmar, ASEAN now has appointed ASEAN special envoy on Myanmar. So, and we always know that the voices of women, especially those who are in ethnic group, or the voices of the children, especially those who are coming from marginalized group, never heard. So it is perhaps the opportunity for ACWC to implement Article 5.4 to advocate on behalf of women and children to gather voices, to mobilize ideas from women and children, from ethnic group, from those who never heard about what they want or what they envision about Myanmar, and put this ACWC can talk to them, can also talk to them through civil society or through academy. There are a number of ways to do this, and then present it as ACWC inputs to the special envoy. So that's my comments. Thank you very much for all the presentations.
Thank you, Mbak Yuyun. Actually, you have more time than the 5 minutes, but this is good for your comment about the ACWC, how engaging the ACWC. But now, maybe we miss for the back-to-back meeting with the ACWC and ICHR. Already long time, we know not happen again. I think we need that. And then experience children during the pandemic, we should be recognized, and also the post-pandemic. Actually, this already mentioned from the children forum last year. There's already mentioned about the impact on the children and the pandemic. It's a lot of issues there come up from the children. And then about the Myanmar, I agree with you. I hope future ACWC also can focus on the issues in Myanmar. And next, we will call our friend Mas Ali, please. The floor is yours.
Thank you, and thanks for the presentation, Dato, Ibu Yanti, Ibu Santi, and of course also Brazil. Although UNICEF is supporting ASEAN in the regional level, including having an MOU, what I would like to focus is based on my experience and observation in Indonesia, but the role of ACWC, but also highlighting what the four presenters already mentioned before. Ibu Yanti share about the mandates and function, and Dato already raised about the challenges. Ibu Santi highlight from the very first remark that she has about not knowing what ACWC and ASEAN's role and activities. And of course, then Rachel also highlight about emerging issues and the role of CSO at the regional level. My observation, and also in responding to the presentation of the panelists, is UNICEF particularly had an opportunity almost every year, because ACWC regularly invite the UN Special Representative on Violence Against Children. And during her visit, Santos Pais in the past, and then also Najat, we took the opportunity to organize a discussion between the Special Representative on Violence Against Children and also CSO. Last year, for example, just before the pandemic, Dr. Najat had, I think, almost 3 hours discussion with the Puskapa team, highlighting about the issues, data, and others. That was an opportunity that we have for UNICEF in facilitating discussion between CSO and SRSG, which I didn't see. I haven't seen, for example, how the CSO actually have the opportunity being facilitated by ACWC. So perhaps this would be one of the key action point for the future. So during the visit, the special representative also have opportunities for discussion with CSO, particularly CSO in Indonesia. If we look into the mandate, including supporting the government to develop and report CEDAW, CRC, and Universal Periodic Report, and also supporting the implementation of the concluding observation, I think particularly in Indonesia, the opportunity is coming now. We haven't seen what happened in the past, for example, but at the moment, CEDAW will be discussed in October. The 5th and the 6th state party report was submitted by the government. A CRC report was submitted in January. So in 2 years, I think they will be deliberated in the session with the Committee of Child Rights. And next year would be the 4th cycle of Universal Periodic Report. So I think this is an opportunity for ACWC representative to really engage with CSO, but also with the government in advocating the follow-up action from the concluding observation in all, at least the 3 conventions. One thing is, I guess, would be challenging for Ibu Yanti. I'm speaking about the context of Indonesia, because although the ACWC representative mandate is to advocate to the government, the activities like what that already mentioned before is actually very much in line or representing the government. And Ibu Yanti also being part of Save the Children Indonesia, that have a very good role in developing alternative report, might have to see where she's taking the role, particularly in pushing for the recommendation from the CSO through the shadow report, but also as a representative to highlight what the government needs to fulfill. The other thing would also be about the emerging issues at the regional level. UNICEF and UNHCR, for example, supporting the government, local government, and advocating, and with engagement of CSO also on the refugee issues in Indonesia when they came and landed, embarked in Aceh. Here, something perhaps for ACWC in Indonesia, but also in the region, to look into the context of the refugee and also children affected by the migrations. How this could be a strong agenda in ASEAN, but also in the countries that receiving the refugees would be able to respond properly. And the engagement with the CSO, for example, a lot of a network already working on refugee issues in Indonesia, in the country, how it could be reached by ACWC representative. The other thing is, Yuyum and Rachel already mentioned about the collaboration. I guess one example, for example, is the study supported by UNICEF, but also with UNFPA and UN Women about violence against women and children, that more and more showing evidence about the link between violence against children and violence against women. And I guess this would highlight the importance of ACWC representative for women's rights and for child rights to collaborate, but also to engage with HCR representative in the issues, because we cannot see these things separately. And again, this is an opportunity not to work in silo. And the other thing is about the CSO is, Ibu Santi, I guess, not talking about the role of Puskapa and the opportunity that Puskapa has, not only as a very strong academic institution, a think tank based in the university, but their capacity also relevant in the regional level, and they are already engaged in the global network, have a global and regional capacities. Also with APPRN, which is a very yeah. So this is an opportunity for ACWC to engage with NGOs, civil society, academics, with a very strong capacity at the regional and global level. Thank you.
Welcome, Mas Ali. Terima kasih. I think we gave a good insight from Mas Ali, just a reflection for the ACWC presentation, and now how we can engage more for the CSO and the academia, and also the ACWC and HR can engage together also to raising the issues, emerging issues in their country and also in regional. Thank you, Mas Ali. And now we go to the third discussion. Ms. Audrey Lee is a senior program manager at International Women Rights Asian Watch Asia Pacific. Ms. Audrey, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ibu Yuyum. Selamat siang, everybody. I'm Audrey Lee from ERO Asia Pacific. That's how we pronounce our very strange and long acronym. So for some of you who know us, maybe we are an international women's human rights organization, but based in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. And we are recognized by the CEDAW committee and the OHCHR to support and facilitate all other NGOs to the CEDAW review process. So just to start, I want to congratulate ACWC on your second decade of work, and we have a lot of expectation and hope on your agenda. I want to thank the speakers who shared, in a sense, a reality check of what's happening, in our day-to-day lives, whether it's to do with COVID or, having to face what is happening with authoritarian crackdowns, fragile states, this picture of global migration and the risks that especially women and children are facing. Thank you for sharing that. I think it would be a disservice to all the important work that are done by these groups if we don't put that context front and center when we talk about ACWC and the important role that you will play in addressing the rights context in this picture. When I was approached to contribute to this discussion, I did have a slight concern about the framing of the think tanks and academics in this policy space with ACWC, only because the access and the legitimacy, how we are seen as CSOs at some other groups. for example, grassroots or constituency-led groups do face challenges in accessing the system, including the ASEAN human rights system. So, you know, I had a question whether this would privilege certain technocrats in conversations, but I can see that ACWC, you have shared your perspectives and the ways you are working with groups on the ground. So I hope that continues in terms of consultation and also participation of diverse groups, especially those who are most at risk, and identifying those in advance. The one thing I wanted to share was 2 years ago when COVID happened in February, we were in a meeting in Jakarta just before everything locked down. And we actually talked about this issue of how the civil society groups, including the feminist movement, were expecting how ACWC would strengthen its diagnostic potential and capacity, being a lead policy actor with the ASEAN member states. So, you know, we hope that this kind of very nimble, very responsive ACWC that looks at the current crises that are happening, and it's multiple crises, and has the capacity, the energy, the resources to provide this level of policy response and diagnostic response, right? That was kind of something that reminded me, because it happened actually just 2 years ago. And so we're really glad to see that you're continuing to do this kind of structural analysis and conversation. We also are aware that there are a lot of structural analysis around the different, like the recovery type conversations that are happening, and there are conversations that are concerning to the feminist movement, including this normalizing of the view of women as shock absorbers in our economies. We are already very fragile, but that these very specific policy entry points on recovery that ACWC might contribute to and provide a stronger analysis that then balances the amount of instrumental policy making, right, around women's labor force participation, or how they can benefit from recovery schemes, whether it's about cash transfers, unconditional or conditional, right, and what in a different country context, what might happen because of that. So I think having very kind of zoomed in focus on some of these types of recovery modes will be very helpful. The other aspect I wanted to talk about also was the issue of collaboration that many of you have raised. And this issue also relates to the question of overlap and policy and system coherence, right? Which may be a challenge for CSOs as well as states. And ACWC is within a certain ecosystem for monitoring, policy influencing and assessment of how states are delivering on their equality commitments. So I think this sense of also connecting ACWC and its role to the bigger system, whether it's the treaty body system, which is already there is a direct link through the TOR of ACWC, whether it's CRC or CEDAW. And because at this time, I think we know that in the treaty body strengthening agenda, it has kind of come to some finalization in 2020. And there are all these conversations about different formulas for what the future of the treaty body system looks like, and how ACWC and other regional type mechanisms link to this broader system. So, whether it's this idea of full and focus reviews, as well as focus reviews in country, these are some of the models that are being talked about right now in terms of the future of the treaty body review system. I hope to see some thinking from ACWC, and also some continued engagement since the first informal meeting between CEDAW and ACWC happened in 2009. There hasn't been further interaction. But there is, for example, in CEDAW, there is still that existing working group on regional mechanisms. So we hope to have more conversation in terms of those structural connections. The other, I think
time left.
Is my time up?
Yes, I think so.
Can I make one last point?
Okay,
please. Okay. So there's one thing that was already shared about in terms of prioritization, right? And because obviously we are as focused as we are on the normative frameworks, we are also focused on implementation. We want to see results-based, commitments, right? So I think the role and mandate of ACWC provides us a structure for that. Contribution to the results-based approach to our state's obligations, right? Whether it's at the ASEAN level or the country level or the international level. And I think that when we look at the concluding observations of CRC and CEDAW, in a way, they are already a prioritization mechanism. So whether there are processes and there are mechanisms that involve CSOs in these prioritizations of the concluding observations. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Audrey Lee, from your insight. I think you cover all the issues, and from the women's side, this is how the ACWC can engage or more collaboration with the other treaty body and also the NGOs and the others. And I like for you mention about the result-based commitment. We want to see the result from the ACWC in ASEAN member state. Thank you for your insight and the review and all of the discussion from your comment and feedback. But now we have only 50 minutes left. We just continue with the question from the participant in here. From Slido. See, I have a Slido now. The Slido, one question, I think one question, 2 or 3 questions can answer by all the ACWC, but this is a limited question for the academia. But if the Ibu Santi and Miss Russell can answer also, that's very good. First, actually, we have the question. This is the number 1, or in here, we have what I should read. Number 1, I wonder if ACWC project have ever resulted in institutional changes, formal or informal, concerning women's and children's issues in ASEAN member state. And the second, the fact that the work ACWC primarily driven by a work plan, or the ACWC work plan people driven? It is a more localized project or something else, since many issues on gender equality also require a life cycle approach to addressing women and children's issues. And third, ACWC members seeing obstacle due to the silo approach to having separate children rights reps and women rights rep working on different agendas. I think this the question come up from the Amar University in Queensland and the Audrey. The other question from Taufan, I can read or just scroll down. Scroll down. Okay, this is from Jelen. Okay. Up to what extent do you think ACWC was able to make use the TOR is its advantage with the mandate of the ACWC? Do you think we're able to do more? I think you can see the question in here, and we have just left of 50 minutes. I hope the panelists can answer the question from the participant shortly and sharp. Please, maybe from Dato first, or maybe from Ibu Mbak Yanti and Mbak Santi and Mr. Russell Tan. Please, if you have an answer for the question from the participant. Who's the first? Pak Dato?
Yes.
Dato,
Okay. Can I first respond to our discussions point of view, just very quickly? I think firstly on Ms. Yu Yun's comment, why I think my response will also perhaps answer many of the questions posed on Slido. Yeah, I hope they will enlighten them as well. So now, why are there more initiatives on children than women? Now, the answer is that because we work. I mean, in cases where projects on women, we work in collaboration with ACW. All right. So there are a number of projects, ongoing projects now. Like WPS, culture of prevention, and so on and so forth. And then the themes, yes, the new work plan will be, categorized into themes, coupled with the, aspects of work as determined in the terms of reference. And the previous work plan also were also arranged according to themes, but simply because we did not get the right the support, financial and technical, so these projects were abandoned or maybe put forward into the next work plan. Okay, that's my short answer. Now, CSO collaboration. Yes, we do have collaborations with CSO. Thank you to UNICEF. Our UNICEF representative is here. Thank you to Plan International. Thank you to UN Women. Now, these are CSOs. These are international bodies. But when it comes to homegrown CSOs, what I mentioned just now is to pull together, come up with ideas, and convey them to the country representative, you see? Because the reason being that there are so many CSOs around the region, right? We work with CRC Asia, all right, as well. The CRC represents a group of civil society organizations across the region, all right? So I think the best approach is to work together, and consult the country representative, and then we can work out, and the country representative will convey whatever proposal to us. All right. So in a sense, we cannot. We cannot just look into one proposal and then work with them. No, we have a way of getting people together, ACWC members, and come up with consensus. All right, and also it actually depends on the projects, and the priorities that we have. Regarding the ACWC ICHA, thank you for acknowledging that you have already received the draft declaration on both elimination of bullying among children. Now, in fact, we have in the past, that's the way we do it. We distributed everything to all ASEAN sectorial bodies, all right? So it depends whether, each body would respond to it or not. But, I feel that other bodies would actively engaged, with us as well. And as mentioned by Yuyum, we should have another forum, between ACWC and ICHA. Perhaps in our October meeting, we will invite ICHA to come, and share our common cause in our meeting. Regarding the Myanmar issue, now perhaps we can work together as well with ICHA, because it's not simply women and children issues. There are human rights issues there. So that's my response to Ms. Yuyun AICA representative from Indonesia. Now, my response to Mr. Ali Aulia, again, UNICEF has engaged, collaborated, supported many of our projects, and I think with reference to engagement with CSOs, I don't have to repeat here. I think that's the way to go. I mean, for Indonesia, for example, yeah, please go to the Indonesian representative, both women and children, right? And the rep will bring everything to ACWC's attention. And perhaps, again, ACWC rep and AICA rep can work together. I mean, country representative. In response to Ms. Audrey Lee's comment about diagnostic response. Now, again, this is the issue. We don't actually have the capacity. You see, each of us are located differently, and we don't have office. Perhaps, maybe I could propose that each country will have its own ACWC office, supported by staff and so on. You see, researchers, blah, 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 so that we can deal with urgent matters. But as far as we are now at present, it's beyond our capacity to, actually do all these additional duties. And furthermore, as I mentioned earlier, representatives come from different backgrounds. They come from one individual CSO, some are government officers. It is very, actually, they work alone. Some of them do not have the support. Yeah. Maybe some of you are fortunate enough. I mean, some of the representatives are fortunate enough for being, for having supported from ministries and any other government agencies. I think that the best way to go is to expand our wings for each individual member states. And talking about policy influencing, yes, that's what we actually do. We have RPA, Regional Plan of Actions. We have declarations, guidelines for the purpose of policy change, for purpose of improving, the system. All right. But when it comes to assessment, evaluation, monitoring, now we again, as I mentioned earlier, even some countries, they do not fully give us the data back. Now it is very important for us to give a clear picture what is actually happening. But when those data are not present, then we cannot do anything about it. So this is again a very important issue. Yeah. And about result-based approach, again, the new 21-25 action plan will include monitoring and evaluation. Even in the last RPA, EVAC, and eval, some member states chose not to do the do the actual workshop and together with CSO and other relevant agencies. So meaning that we again lack the information from 102 member states. So, but again, we tried to gather information regarding, elimination of violence against children and women. And now I think we have already completed on children, now on women. Yeah. So I hope that each individual member state will cooperate, yeah, in implementing all these projects. Now, regarding the Slido questions, yeah, about institutional changes, I think you have to refer to each member state, agency responsible for all this. And then the second one, the fact that work is primarily driven by work plan. Yes, again, this is the thing about people driven, you see. So we are hoping that, individual representative will come up with initiatives, proposal, projects, yeah, that is relevant to the on situation and perhaps may be beneficial to the whole region. Now, are ACWC members seeing obstacles due to the siloed approach to having separate child? Yes. In the previous forums, I can't remember which, we have UNICEF, we have UN Women. So these two agencies or organization, one supported women, one supported children, and then within ASEAN itself, we have one for the whole of human rights, and then we have another for children, women, and children. So even from the UN side, the compartmentalization of all these things are already there. So it triggers down to even to ACWC. So that is the difficulty that we faced. All right. When it comes to women's rights, there are only 10 representatives involved, while the child may, intervene once in a while. All right. So that's one. Yeah. Okay. So I've done that already. So I hope
thank you, Dato, for your answer.
Thank you.
A lot of questions you answer from your side, but now maybe Mbak Yanti can add something from the question, or you have answered one question in here. I think it's a lot of question, but you can answer what you like it answer from this question, because we have a time limit now already. Yes, already more than 4:13.
Thank you, Mbak Yuyu. I think all of the questions regarding ACWC have been well answered by Dato. Thank you so much, Dato. Since I am new to ACWC family, so I offered all the answers to Dato instead of me answering all the questions. But I would like to respond to all the discussions, that happens before Q&A sessions, that I agree with all of the suggestions regarding conducting regular consultations, consultative meetings with CSOs, and seeking potential research with academics, and focusing more on the result-based commitment. This is something that I am aiming as I join ACWC and going deeper into the work plan. And I would like to respond as well to Mas Ali. Thank you for the reminder and working with the CRC documents, a review. And Save the Children. Actually, there are many people works at the Child Protection Department. And thank you for the reminder. I would put myself as ACWC representative for now on, and let the other people work on the CRC documents. Thank you. That's all, Mbak Yuyum, from me.
Okay, thank you, Mbak Yanti, for answer. I think yes, already covered by Brato, and additional answer from yours. And now maybe Miss Russell, you have any answer or not from all the question? Because I think it's most on the ACWC, but Mbak Santi already left. But maybe Mr. Russell, you have a additional answer or just no answer? This is a outcome of the support government effort implementing the all of the ACWC. Ms. Russell Tan, are you still there? Or already left? Okay. Now we already 3:44 now. Actually, we already just our time is 3 p.m. But now we violation of the time until 44 a minute. But it's okay. Thank you so much for all the panelists and discussion. I think today we have a get knowledge on our discussion about how the ACWC implement their mandate and function in future under the 16th of the mandate and function, how they can also engage with the many of the CSOs in the regional and also in the national level, and how they can support the government, for example, for their CRC reporting and implementing the action plan in the regional, in action plan from the ACWC in the regional, and then how they can cover also from their we have the regional issues about the refugees and in the camp, and maybe Indonesia, Malaysia, and the Thailand, and the other also have the issue of refugees. And then okay, how the ACWC also contribute to comprehensive protection and promotion on the children and the women. How also balance work with our ACWC women and the children, because they said more ACWC children more active than the women. Actually, today we try to invite the ACWC rep from the women, but they are busy and not answer for them. But we hope next webinar we can invite the ACWC women too in this our discussion. And then tomorrow we still have another webinar to see how we can engage with the CSO and the think tank more clearly, not only on the paper, but the implementation, engaging together in the regional and the national level. I think hope today we can get more what is important information, good participation, and a lot of question, but we have limited time. I'm sorry, we have already passed our session now. And now I will return back to our MC for the session. Thank you so much for your participation today. MC, please return back to you.
Yeah,
thank you so much.
Right, thank you so much for moderating the public lecture, Ibu Yuyum. It was truly an insightful presentations and also discussions. I'm sure we all have our own takeaways for today's event. So, all right, this concludes today's public lecture. Thank you again for all the amazing speakers and also discussants that has shared your knowledge and also your experience on the issues comprehensively. Thank you as well for all the participants for joining. Finally, for all the participants, if you would like to collect your e-certificate, here's the link. You can claim your e-certificate by fulfilling the detailed information in the QR code and also filling out the evaluations form that is provided in the screen. We will also be rolling out for more webinars in the coming weeks and months, and we hope to see you at our future events. Thank you so much for attending to this event and have a great day. Thank you, everyone.